Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Council meeting of 28th of April 2025. Before we commence the meeting, I request that all mobile telephones are turned off or switched on to silent. Thank you. We'll now commence by reading the Acknowledgement of Country. I call upon Councillor Abuki to read the Acknowledgement of Country.
Thank you. We acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which the City of Boroondara stands, the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people of the Eastern Kulin Nations. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are part of our community today. We recognise the continuing connection of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people to this land, its waterways and its culture. We honour their enduring contributions and stewardship and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. The City of Boroondara is committed to the journey of reconciliation. We support respectful relationships, truth-telling and collaboration with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, working together towards a shared future grounded in recognition, justice and respect.
Thank you. My name is Councillor Sophie Tawney and I'm the Mayor of Boroondara City Council. I'll start by introducing my fellow councillors. Seated to my left at the horseshoe table in Council Chamber are Councillor Lisa Hollingsworth, Councillor Shimmer Abuki, Councillor Wes Galt, Councillor Michael Nolan, Councillor Felicity Sinfield, Councillor Victor Franco is on the opposite side, Councillor Mal Osborne-Smith, Councillor Rob Baillieu, Councillor John Friend-Pereira and Councillor Chris Pattis. I also acknowledge in attendance this evening our Chief Executive Officer, Mr Philip Storer, and our Manager of Governance and Legal, Mr Brian Wee. There are other officers in attendance tonight and they will be introduced as required. Please note, this council meeting is being live streamed on the council YouTube page so you can watch proceedings of the meeting, council deliberations and voting. The meeting will also be recorded and made available on the council website as soon as practicable after the meeting. I'll now move to apologies. Mr Wee, are there any apologies for this evening?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no apologies this evening.
Thank you. I now move to agenda item 2, adoption and confirmation of the minutes of the council meetings held on the 24th and the 31st of March 2025. Councillors, can I please have a motion to adopt and confirm the minutes? Councillor Galt.
As moved, Mayor.
And do I have a seconder? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Yes, happy to second that, thank you.
Councillors, is anyone opposed? I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Moving to item 3, declaration of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officer. Councillors and council officers, are there any conflicts of interest that you wish to foreshadow for the matters on the agenda tonight?
Thank you very much.
Mr Storer?
I'll be declaring a conflict.
Thank you. I'll now move to deputations, presentations, petitions and public submissions. Mr Wee, are there any petitions?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there is one petition this evening. It relates to penalties for violations of the Boroondara Tree Protection Law.
Councillors, is anyone prepared to move a motion in relation to the petition as appearing on the screen? Councillor Abuki.
I'm happy to move that motion, thank you.
Councillors, do I have a seconder? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Happy to second that, Mayor.
Is anyone opposed? I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll move on to item 5 of the agenda. Informal meetings of councillors. Councillors, is anyone prepared to move a motion in relation to informal meetings of councillors as appearing on screen? Okay. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Happy to move the motion, but I just wanted to seek clarification first, if I may.
Yes.
Question for governance. It's with regard to the third page of the report with regard to the record of informal meetings of councillors on the 7th of April. I'll just give governance a minute just to bring that up. And my question's just with regard to the councillors in attendance and officers in attendance. One of the subject matters was the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee, and it's stated conflicts disclosed none. Now, I just wanted to point out, obviously, the CEO did declare a conflict and did step out for that element of discussion. So just for compliance reasons.
Mr Wee?
Through you, Madam Mayor, that the item wasn't presented on that night, and so the amendment we propose to make will be to remove that item from the informal meeting of councillors note.
So it was presented the following week, was it? Look, if it can just be noted anyway, whether it's removed or amended to reflect.
And that will be attached to the minutes.
Thank you very much. And if that's the case, I'm happy to move the motion as circulated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Friend-Pereira.
Yes, seconding.
Councillors, is anyone opposed? I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move on to item 6, public question time. Council encourages the submission of public questions prior to 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Questions submitted prior to 12 noon will be provided with a detailed verbal response as well as a response in writing. Those submitted after 12 p.m. will receive a verbal response if possible, but will otherwise be taken on notice for a more comprehensive written response to be provided in due course. Mr Wee, do we have any public questions?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we received 3 submissions by 2 members of the community.
Thank you for your questions. One submission was disallowed because it did not contain a question. All other questions have been allowed in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Governance Rules. All questions will receive a written response in due course. The first question is from Rachel Lamont. Subject is Taronga Village. Question, please advise what steps Council is taking to stop illegal and dangerous deliveries at Taronga Village. We have been consulting with Council enforcement staff for 4 years on this issue and would like a conclusion. Why has nothing been done to issue a PIN to the offending business? I call upon the Director of Urban Living to respond to this question.
Thanks, Mayor. Happy to provide a response and actually some perhaps specific updates as to what has occurred over recent weeks and months in regard to this matter. So in responding to the question, I provide the following advice. On the 24th of March 2025, a static surveillance was conducted from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. and no breaches were observed on that particular date. However, from the 7th of April to the 18th of April, it's a 9-day period, there was further surveillance conducted between the hours of 4 a.m. and 7 a.m. During that time, there were 4 breaches detected. 3 of these breaches were by the same driver and company. The other breach was a different company. The 2 companies were both third-party contractors delivering separately to 2 specific businesses within the Taronga Village. Penalty notices have been issued for all 4 breaches for not complying with Clause 49, the noise requirements of the local law, and specifically delivering goods outside of the prescribed hours. The offending companies have been contacted and have confirmed they will adjust deliveries to occur within the permitted hours. The local laws team will be following up with the customer involved or customers involved, I should say, to share the outcomes of the surveillance that's been undertaken. And further surveillance at this stage is not planned but can be reassessed should the circumstances change.
Thank you, Mr Walker, and thank you for your question, Rachel. Second question is from Ian Hundley, and the subject is Greythorn Park Sports Pavilion. Please advise why the anticipated cost of the proposed sports pavilion at Greythorn Park has blown out from $495,000 to $4,908,000 as reported in the Boroondara Council budget papers over the period 2015-2016 to 2024-2025, and whether Boroondara Council has benchmarked these project costs against the cost of comparable projects undertaken by other local government authorities and other organisations in Victoria. I call upon the Director of Community Services to respond to this question.
Thank you, Mayor. Detailed project scoping was undertaken since the project was initially included in the budget over 7 years ago, and further investigation has been undertaken into the building condition, use and alignment to our policy called the Development and Funding of Community Pavilions. This work has informed the current scope and budget. And every site is different, so whilst benchmarking can be useful and informative, the particular provisions of each site will determine the scope and the cost. Council also has a standard approach to pavilion projects, which involve engaging an independent quantity surveyor to determine project budget. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Ian Hundley, for your question. We'll now move on to item 7, notices of motion. Mr Wee, do we have any notices of motion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, there are no notices of motion this evening.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item 8, presentation of officers' reports. Councillors, I believe tonight it is most appropriate for item 8.11, draft budget 2025-2026, endorsement for public exhibition, to be the first officer report item to be presented. This will allow for the public to be more involved and informed on this agenda item. Councillors, do I have consent to change the order of business for tonight to allow item 8.11 to be presented first? Do any councillors object? No councillors object, so we will now address item 8.11, the draft budget endorsement for public consultation. It is my privilege to present to you Council's draft budget for the 2025 to 2026 financial year. A special thank you to Acting CFO Sapphire Allen and her team for the incredible work on this document. This draft budget has been prepared in line with our commitment to sustainable budgeting and responsible financial management. It is forward-looking, aiming to build a resilient, sustainable Boroondara that thrives now and in the future. This is a draft budget, however. It's just a draft budget, however, and we want to hear from you, the community, before it is finalised and presented for approval from councillors. This budget, shaped by the will of the community in last year's election, builds on a strong foundation while stepping up our commitment to climate action. It maintains investment in core services and infrastructure while sharpening our focus on health and well-being, supporting young people, building climate resilience and reducing community emissions. Guided by the Boroondara Community Plan, our community-driven roadmap, this budget invests in practical, measurable actions, keeping us aligned with what matters most to you. I'm excited about the projects we're funding for young people in Boroondara. We're allocating approximately $2.2 million annually to maintain and upgrade playgrounds. Over $6.2 million a year will go to maintaining and upgrading sports grounds. And this year alone, we will invest $3.3 million to upgrade our community-run kindergartens and preschools. We're also investing more than $27 million over 4 years to refurbish, upgrade or redevelop 7 sporting pavilions. These upgrades will level the playing field and help ensure equitable access to sport in Boroondara with a focus on increasing female participation in sport. We know how important the many services we provide are to the communities that we represent. That's why this budget continues our investment in infrastructure, assets and core services. Next year, we will invest $16 million to replace, refurbish and repair roads, footpaths and curbs across the city. To support traders and shoppers, we're investing in shopping strips and laneways across Boroondara. Major improvements are coming for Camberwell and Glenferrie through our placemaking projects, including transforming Columbia Street into a safe, walkable space between Glenferrie Station and the university. And we've earmarked $9.2 million over the next 3 years to refresh Kew and Hawthorn libraries with modern facilities and amenities. This budget also outlines significant yet responsible spending to help prepare Boroondara for the impact of climate change. From funding for solar lighting in parks to over $2.5 million to implement the Tree Canopy Strategy Action Plan, we're setting the groundwork for real climate action. We know climate change is bringing more frequent and severe weather events. That's why we're investing $5.4 million over the next 4 years to reline ageing concrete stormwater drains to strengthen our city's drainage networks. We're also increasing funding on 2 major initiatives. First, we're investing $3 million to build greenways across our city, shared paths that encourage urban biodiversity and tree canopy growth while connecting our community for decades to come. And secondly, nearly $16 million over 4 years to deliver actions from our Climate Action Plan. This includes helping residents electrify their homes and businesses to reduce reliance on gas while expanding access to electric vehicle charging infrastructure across Boroondara. This budget is responsible and leaves us financial headroom while delivering important initiatives, programs and progress for our community. But for me, the heart of this budget isn't just about the important work funded, like investing in our shopping strips and businesses, or funding for the council's continuing digital transformation, or ongoing funding of our roads and critical services for people of all abilities, ages and backgrounds. For me, the heart of this budget is the opportunities it creates for young people. It's the new playgrounds. It's the world-class playing fields and fairer access to facilities for girls. It's the thousands of new books this means for our libraries. It's the important climate action this budget funds. It's about the investment we're making in future generations through this budget. And we want to hear from you. To have your say, jump on our website. Public consultation on this draft budget runs from this Wednesday, the 30th of April, until the 14th of May. And then feel free to tell us directly what you think. The hearing of submissions is scheduled for a meeting here on the 26th of May, where members of public can have their say. I encourage you, as you review this draft budget, to look beyond the numbers. Look at this budget as a blueprint for a more inclusive, resilient and vibrant Boroondara that we can build together. The Boroondara we want to pass on to our children and grandchildren. Thank you. And now I'll pass on to our Acting Chief Financial Officer, Sapphire Allen. Thank you, Sapphire.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, councillors, and through you, Mayor. Presented to you this evening for endorsement is the draft budget 2025 to 26, which is the first step towards council's adoption of the 25-26 final budget. As the Mayor has mentioned, public consultation on this draft budget will run from 30 April to 14th of May 2025. Hearing of submissions is scheduled for the 26th of May, where members of the public can have their say. Thank you and happy to take any questions.
Councillors, are there any questions of the officers? Councillor Galt.
Thanks very much. No question at this time, but I'd just like to foreshadow a motion when the time is right.
Thank you, Councillor Galt. Councillors, any further questions? No further questions. Councillor Galt.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation as it appears on the screen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galt. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nolan.
I'm happy to second the motion as it appears on the screen.
Thank you. To assist the mover, is there anyone opposed? No. Councillor Galt, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I will, thank you, Mayor, but just very briefly because it's been a long process to get us to this point. I'd like to obviously thank the officers. I think this year has been a very protracted process, considering there's a lot of new members around this horseshoe table, but also because of the complexity of what we're dealing with. You put an awful lot of effort into it, and you've kept very straight faces while we asked for huge changes to be made in the budget. So I can only thank you for that, and also the amazing turnaround times you've had in bringing responses back to us when we requested them. So I think we all have had a wonderful opportunity to review the budget, to comment on the budget, to discuss the budget. And I'm as one, and I think we all are, very keen to see the comments that come back to our community. So I recommend to my fellows tonight the supporting of this motion so we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Galt. Councillor Nolan, as the seconder, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I would thank you, through you, Chair. I would also like to thank the officers, Ms Allen and everyone else, other executive team leads and all the teams throughout the council and the CEO for assisting in this process, this very rigorous budget process. I'd like to thank my fellow councillors for their persistence and goodwill during the process. And in terms of the timing, it wasn't easy to get, but we always had in mind that we wanted to go and give a public consultation opportunity for 2 weeks, from the 30th of April to the 14th of May. So that's really put a lot of pressure on everyone, but I think the objective of bringing that opportunity to the public was very important. So I commend the budget to the councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Nolan. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll move to item 8.1, the February 2025 monthly financial report. This item will be introduced by Sapphire Allen, Acting Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. I'm pleased to present the February 2025 monthly financial report. Council's favourable operating result against year-to-date budget of $106.36 million is 13.22 or 14% above the 24-25 amended budget. At the end of February, Council's cash position stood at $243.73 million or 19.34 million above the year-to-date budget. Council's balance sheet and cash position remain sound. Thank you and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Ms Allen. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Pattis.
Through you, Madam Mayor, no questions, but happy to move the motion, the officer's recommendation.
I'd like to foreshadow that you might
foreshadow
foreshadow a motion. Thank you, Councillor Pattis. Any other questions of council officers? Councillor Pattis.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nolan.
I'd like to second that motion.
To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. Councillor Pattis, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
I will now put the motion to vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Thank you, Ms Allen. We'll move to item 8.2, recommendations of Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 19th of March 2025. The item will be introduced by Brian Wee, the Manager of Governance and Legal.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report, as the name suggests, presents the recommendations from the most recent Audit and Risk Committee meeting on the 19th of March. The recommendations of the 12 individual reports are set out in attachment 1. Critically, item 12 in that report was an updated strategic risk register for council, which the Audit and Risk Committee endorses and recommends to council for adoption. Happy to take any questions.
Councillors, are there any questions of the officers? Councillor Abuki?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to foreshadow a motion.
Thank you. Councillor Sinfield? Any questions? Not at this stage. Councillor Abuki, Councillor Nolan, do you have a question of the officers?
Yes, look, I have foreshadowed, I don't know whether it's an amendment, but I've foreshadowed that we add a resolution to direct officers to prepare a report on the risks and benefits of different contractual models in major projects.
Is there a question in that, Councillor Nolan?
Sorry, I'm
No,
just looking for direction.
No, just, it's question time, okay. So you're okay for now. Councillor Abuki.
Thank you. I'd like to move a motion, please.
Yep.
And I'd like to add to the motion that's up there on the screen.
There is no motion on the screen as yet. It's coming up.
Yep. Or the recommended motion that was on the screen. Thank you. Yes, so I'd like to move the motion that is up there on the screen now, the 4 items as they read.
Thank you, Councillor Abuki. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Sinfield.
Happy to second.
Thank you. To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. Councillor Abuki, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Just to say that by adopting this motion, Council reinforces its commitment to strong governance, transparency and the responsible stewardship of community assets and resources. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abuki. I'll now put the motion to vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move to item 8.3, contract number 2024/34.1, provision of mobile garbage bins. The item will be introduced by Sean Martin, Manager of Facilities and Waste Infrastructure. Thank you, Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. The provision of mobile garbage bins is an essential element of Council's waste services, with garbage bins being utilised in curbside waste collection, public place litter bins, Council-sanctioned event bins and trader waste cages. The appropriate supply of bins is required to ensure the cost-effective, reliable and efficient running of those services. Council has sought quotations from suitably qualified suppliers via the Municipal Association of Victoria panel contract. The benefits of utilising MAV panel include competitive advantage through combined purchasing and utilising MAV run procurement tendering services, thus saving Council time and expense. We are pleased to report that the preferred tender will provide 100% recycled bin bodies and bin parts that are compatible with Council's current bin assets. The procurement process has been undertaken per Council's procurement policy. The tender evaluation panel has assessed all tenders received against the specified criteria and is satisfied that the recommended contractor can provide bins and industrial containers and associated products in a manner that provides the best outcome for Council residents and businesses. The report seeks to award contract 2024-34.1, provision of mobile garbage bins, industrial containers and bin associated products and services to Solo MGB Australia at their tendered schedule of rates for initial period of to the 31st of August 26, with 2 optional increments of 1 year. The officer's recommendation is provided in the report, and I ask Council to consider the report for adoption.
Thank you, Mr Martin. Any questions, councillors, of council officers? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Mr Martin. I asked this question, of course, earlier today, but I think it might be of some interest to my fellow councillors just to repeat the answer that you provided for me, if you could. The question was in relation to the procurement policy, in particular, which councils you have spoken to, what their arrangement regarding contract timing and what can be done to align this new contract with the timing of other council contracts to get the opportunity for collaborative opportunity in the future. And I appreciated your answer today. It might be useful if you could share that with my fellow councillors for our benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. Council has approached Stonington Council regarding their procurement for mobile garbage bins, and at this time they are still within a contract period. As such, we move to seek quotations through the MAV panel contract. We felt that this would provide the best procurement or collaborative procurement approach, taking advantage of the services provided by the MAV panel contract.
Thank you. Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to clarify, the report says that the preferred contractor can provide 100% recyclable bodies and parts. Does that mean that they will provide it under the contract? I know it's a subtle point, but I just want to be clear that can, in this case, will mean will provide.
Thank you, Councillor Franco, and through you, Madam Mayor. Bin bodies will be 100% recycled, and those will be provided in a black colour. Bin parts will have some component that is recycled, but in order to get the correct colouring for bin lids, we cannot provide 100% recycled product in bin lids, for example.
Can I ask a follow-on question? Is that because of the colouring in the bin lids? This is not something that I've seen in any of the documents issued by the state government in relation to bin lid covering.
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, because when we receive recycled plastics, we cannot ensure that the colouring is all matched or correct. They are all lumped into one, and so then we cannot get the specific colouring for bin lids. It's a process that we can't do at this stage, well, providers cannot undertake at this stage. So it's just to get the colouring for lids. But bin bodies, being black, we can certainly acquire those 100% recycled.
Thanks. And just one final question. So the colour of the bin bodies will be black, not green, as they're conventional at the moment in many parts of the municipality?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, we will be changing bin colours as we roll out the new bins. This obviously will take a number of years to happen as bins are required to be repaired or new bins come online. So, but it won't happen immediately, but it will slowly take place.
Thank you.
Councillors, is anyone prepared to move a motion? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to move the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Simfield.
Happy to second.
To assist the mover, is there anyone opposed? Councillor Hollingsworth, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Look, very briefly, thank you. I just wanted to thank Mr Martin for compiling a very comprehensive report and very much appreciate his commentary of all that's involved in the report. And I also just wanted to make point that the MAV, for members in our gallery that might be listening this evening, is the Municipal Association of Victoria. It's the peak body of all 79 councils within Victoria, and I appreciate all the due diligence that's being done through the procurement recommendations, advice and practices in place to help benefit councils such as Boroondara to get the best possible contractual deal available. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move on to item 8.4, contract number 2024/43, cleaning services for public toilets. The item will be introduced by Sean Martin, Manager of Facilities, Waste and Infrastructure. Mr. Martin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you. Council currently manages cleaning services for 64 public toilets and 52 barbecues under contract number 2019-121, Cleaning Services, Public Toilets and Barbecues. Recent engagement regarding public toilets has highlighted the cleanliness of council facilities is paramount to our community, and they have high expectations in regard to this service. As the current contractor is now due for renewal, the proposed contract aims to appoint appropriate experience and qualified contractor to provide and ensure the efficient and continuous cleaning of our public toilets and barbecues, providing our community with clean amenities with a service that is of high quality and cost effective, with the aim of encouraging and promoting the use of council's outdoor spaces, shopping precincts and social gathering locations. We are pleased to report that the tender process has been a competitive one, with over 17 submissions. This procurement process has been undertaken per Council's Procurement Policy 2024. The Tender Evaluation Panel has assessed all tender submissions against quantitative and qualitative criteria and is satisfied that the recommended contractors can perform the required work and demonstrated the best outcomes for councils, residents and businesses. This report seeks to award contract number 2024-43, Cleaning Services, Public Toilets and Barbecues, to Blue Sky Services at their tendered schedule of rates for an initial period of 3 years, with 2 optional increments of 1 year and a maximum possible term of 5 years. The officer's recommendation is provided in the report, and I ask Council to consider this report for adoption.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Councillors, are there any questions of council officers? Councillor Abuki.
Thank you for that report. Could you please explain why we would go out to contract instead of having in-house staff to clean? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. The Public Toilet and Barbecue Cleaning Service is a 365-day per year service that includes on-call rapid response services, the collection of sanitary bins and needles, and Council's officers have reviewed the service specifications and estimated that an in-house delivery would require an additional 6 to 7 staff, including support staff. We would also require specialist cleaning equipment and vehicles to support this service. We have used the shopping centre care cleaning crew that is an in-house service as a basis for our estimation of the costs that would be associated if we took this service in-house, and have come to the position that a contracted service is much cheaper or best value for money as opposed to an in-house service.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Just one question regarding scope. I noticed in your summary the services included, of course, cleaning, toilets and barbecues, syringe collection, waste management, collection of rough sleep, abandoned possessions, etc. My question's a simple one, and that is there provision, or are you satisfied there's sufficient provision in the contracts to allow a circular feedback on any issues that may arise, perhaps not only in a maintenance but also a design and the like for our public facilities, to ensure that our Capital Works team can deal with those in a prompt and efficient manner.
Thank you for the question, through you, Madam Mayor. As part of the contract services, we require cleaners to report to us any facilities damages or graffiti or any of such discovered items. Also, under the contracts cleaning services, there is a recommendation for audits, so photographs of each cleaning service and then a monthly report as well. So the idea of that is to provide as much feedback to council about the facilities, about the cleaning service, and whether we need to provide additional facilities through the contract. So, and that is also undertaken through a monthly report that will be provided to management officers managing the contract. Sorry.
Thank you.
Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The officer's recommendation is showing a figure there for the next 5 years. Has that made allowances for any growth in the number of public toilet sites we have around the city?
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. The figure that you see there allows for a 2.5% CPI, but it does not include any additional facilities that we may bring online during the contract. The contract is negotiable so that we can provide those services to new facilities coming online.
Okay, and just a second question, if I may, Mayor. I just want to confirm that these services have previously or are currently being provided by a contractor, and that contractor is not the company that you're recommending here. If you could just clarify that, because it's not clear in the report.
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Madam Mayor. Yes, the current contractor has provided a tender, but they are not the preferred tenderer in this case.
Thank you.
Councillors, is anyone prepared to move a motion? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I'm happy to move a motion in support of the officer's recommendation on screen.
Thank you, Councillor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Pattis. Second. To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. Councillor Osborne-Smith, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
No, I think it's self-explanatory. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move to item 8.5, Community Support Grant Review. This item will be introduced by Andrew McHugh, Manager of Health and Wellbeing Services.
Thank you, and through you, Mayor. The Community Support Grant is Council's largest grant. This year, the grant amount is $653,000, which supports vulnerable people in Boroondara. A review of the grant was undertaken to ensure it funds contemporary services that support community need. The review identified the key issues of vulnerable people in Boroondara being social isolation and loneliness, psychological distress and mental ill health, food insecurity, relationship breakdown and family violence. The current grant is very prescriptive and does not allow any flexibility to address emerging and changing community needs. We are proposing a two-tiered model that can be responsive to community need. Tier 1 would be for more basic services and therefore a smaller amount. Tier 2 would address a broader range of more complex needs across a range of population groups. The grants will be geared towards initiatives that can address social isolation, mental ill health, food insecurity and relationship breakdown and family violence. The new model is proposed to ensure the grant can be responsive to changing needs over time and provide a preventative health focus. The competitive grant process is scheduled to commence in June 2025 and a report will be presented to councillors later this year with recommendations of proposed grant recipients. Happy to take questions.
Thank you, Ms McHugh. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Friend-Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr McHugh. Very thorough report for the Community Support Grant and very detailed, in particular Section 4, which outlined sort of vulnerabilities and considerations in the community. I note that 40 stakeholders and service providers were consulted. Were any service users consulted?
It was just the services that represent those service users.
Okay, thank you. If I may, I've got two more quick ones, potentially. Can you clarify, under the new model, can the same organisation put in multiple applications under either stream or receive multiple applications, or can an organisation only receive one grant in either stream, if that makes sense?
That does, thank you. Organisations can put in multiple applications. It is prioritised that partnership applications will be prioritised. However, the policy which is coming up in the next item on the agenda does not preclude organisations from having multiple grants, and that will be determined through the finalisation of the guidelines that will be provided to the community organisations.
Wonderful, thank you. And you've given me the perfect lead in for my final question. Partnerships, I think this is a really exciting possibility to get organisations to come together where they have unique skills. We know that there's a lot of different things going on in that space. I note that currently what we're suggesting is a 4-week window for applicants. Is that sufficient to allow partnerships to actually occur, or could it be extended out a little bit, given that we have until the end of December, or until December to look at making a decision?
That was the proposed timeframe, but we can certainly consider an extension to that period, whether it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks to be confirmed, but we can consider an extension of time for that process.
Thank you.
Councillors, is anyone prepared to move a motion? Councillor Friend-Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'm having got that additional information from Mr. McHugh. I'm very pleased to move the motion. I think this is a great way forward. And I just note that this is only 0.2 to 0.3% of our annual budget, and yet it makes such a vital safety net for our most vulnerable community members.
So happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ibuki.
Happy to second, thank you.
To assist the mover, is anybody opposed? Councillor Friend-Pereira, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I feel I might have jumped the gun. No, just again to say, for 0.2% of our annual budget, this does very, very important work, protecting the most vulnerable in our community, and it is illustrative of what the City of Boroondara is about. So I think it's very good. And I think this new approach will hopefully bring in that innovation and that partnership and make sure that none of our most marginal and vulnerable communities are missing out.
Thank you, Councillor. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move to item 8.6, the Boroondara Community Strengthening Grants Policy Review. This item will be introduced by Fiona Brown, Manager of Community Development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you, the purpose of the report tonight is to present the revisions to the Community Strengthening Grants Policy, which is attachment 1 in your papers for endorsement. The Community Strengthening Grants Program has recently been audited by Council's internal auditors, who made recommendations endorsed by management and Council's Audit Risk Committee to strengthen fraud controls in the program. Amendments to the policy in attachment 1 are proposed to implement the recommendations. The proposed recommendations are firstly to remove councillors from the review panel and grants decision-making process and restructure the grants assessment and review process as outlined in the report. The proposed restructure and review process will also address another audit recommendation, which is to investigate the opportunity to approve grants under delegated authority of the Director of Community Services and the Director of Places and Spaces for climate action grants. The second proposed change in the policy is to make amendments to the grants eligibility criteria, and an evaluation and acquittal section has been added to each category of a grant in an Appendix 1. This currently sits in the guidelines. You've just heard that Health and Wellbeing Services has presented a separate report on the Community Support Grant Review. Proposed changes to the policy reflect the outcomes of the review and are also in attachment 1. So the resolution is on the screen before you to endorse the grants policy and to delegate authority for the Director of Community Services and Director of Places and Spaces to approve community strengthening grants and the climate action grants, noting the exception to this is the community support grants, which will be presented to Council for endorsement. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Brown. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Friend Pereira.
Just foreshadow a motion when the time is right, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, any further questions? Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you. I think governance can put the motion up on the screen. Thank you.
So I'd like to put that motion. Yep. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Baillieu.
So seconded.
To assist the mover, is there anyone opposed? Councillor Franco? Okay, Councillor Friend Pereira, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
Given that there is opposition, I think it's probably best to. I think the review has been very clear, and this revised policy is a step in the right direction. As councillors, our job is to operate at the strategic level and to give that strategic direction and governance to the council staff. What is proposed here is to really get that alignment. We've got our Burndarra community plan. I don't think it's an effective use of councillors' times to be wading through individual applications and deciding which group gets $3,000 or $10,000. We need to be taking a much bigger view of things, a much more strategic view of things, and seeing how the budget that we allocate to the strengthening grants actually delivers on outcomes. As we've just discussed with the previous item, it's all about impact. It's not just about the inputs and how much budget we allocate, but are we actually getting outcomes? And that's the role of councillors, in my opinion. I'd also like to take this opportunity to quickly and acknowledge the hard work of the officers, in particular the community services teams, and on all those who reviewed the programme. The work also incorporates practice of best practice findings from our audit, internal audit, and a strong focus on transparency and integrity. Our Community Strengthening Grants Programme is a cornerstone of how we bring the Burndarra Community Plan to life. Through 13 different grant categories with up to six funding streams, the programme supports a diverse range of projects from environmental initiatives and creative programmes to health, well-being, supporting opportunities and vibrant local activities. Every grant round, our community used these funds to make a tangible impact on people's lives, fostering inclusion, strengthening mental health, advancing sustainability, encouraging active living, and supporting innovation and leadership. The grants programme is carefully aligned to the 7 priority themes of the community plan, and the motion before us strengthens that link even further, and I look forward to working with colleagues and officers to get the maximum impact out of our grants programme going forward.
Thank you, Councillor Friend Pereira. Councillor Baillieu, do you wish to speak to the motion or reserve your right? Does any other councillor wish to speak or comment? Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to ask the mover a question, or all the officers. I'm just looking at number 5 there. Note a Community Strengthening Grants Evaluation Report. So, President of Council, which I think is a fantastic idea. I'm just wondering, is it intended that this evaluation report, is it evaluating the success of each grant that was offered in the previous year? So is it looking at the objectives of the grant, why the grant was offered, and then whether it achieved its objectives? What exactly is this evaluation report going to be? What information is it going to be providing?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we'd be looking at the collective impact of the grant, so we wouldn't necessarily be looking at each individual one, but we would be wanting to align it back to the objectives, whether it met the objectives, what the outcomes were, and very particularly whether or not that would recommend changes going forward for the next cycle.
Madam Mayor, sorry, I just want to clarify. So are we evaluating the grants program or evaluating each grant that was offered?
If I may, Councillor Pattis, I think we're moving from a system where councillors were involved in deciding on individual grants to a process where we really want to look at the impact of the grants programme overall. So the questions would be, how much is being allocated against the BCP themes? What are we achieving against the KPIs of our Burrendara Community Plan, of the Municipal Health and Public Wellbeing Plan? What do we need to change up? Who applied? Who didn't apply? So much more macro and strategic questions rather than looking at whether organisation A versus organisation B deserve a $2,000 or $3,000 grant.
Okay.
Or 10.
In that case, Madam Mayor, I'd like to propose that evaluation report not just look at the success of the program, but actually look at whether in fact the grant recipients achieved what they said they were going to achieve. I mean, it's a very simple ask. If you're going to provide an evaluation report, it's not just the program. We want to see whether the people that we've provided funding to achieve what they said they were going to achieve.
Thank you, Councillor Pattis. Our grants acquittal process already does that, but I think the questions you raise are really valid, and I think I've been talking to Councillor Pereira about today, and I think it's probably worthwhile just bringing a discussion back to this group around what you want to get out of the evaluation report. If you agree in principle about the idea, I think that's what we're trying to achieve tonight, and we can sort of dive a bit more deeply into that once it's adopted.
Thank you. Councillor Pattis, do you have a further question?
So once we move this motion, it'll come back to us to look at the structure of the evaluation report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattis. Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, I support most, but not all, the recommendations in this report. In fact, the vast majority. I also support the additional clauses that Councillor Friend Pereira has moved that are not contained in the officer's recommendation as printed in the report. I also support in full the recommendations of the Victoria Auditor General's report, Fraud Control over Local Government Grants 2022, and I support in full the recommendations of the Independent Crow report that was presented to and considered by Council's Audit and Risk Committee in 2024. The Victorian Auditor General's report looks at shortcomings in respect to the management of local government grants, and in respect of councillors, it's concerned with councillors sitting on assessment panels and being involved in both the assessment and approval of grant applications. The Auditor General's report specifically recommends that councillors be excluded from assessing and making recommendations on grant applications. It does not recommend removing councillors from decision-making in relation to community grants. This is also consistent with the Local Government Inspectorate's 2019 report, Protecting Integrity, which recommended that councils remove councillors from assessment panels for community grants. An example was cited of Knox Council, where a councillor was both involved in the assessment and decision-making in relation to grants. The Auditor General's report also looks at additional matters in relation to how councillors can be better prepared and staff in relation to complying with provisions for fraud management and conflict of interest. Our internal audit independent report that went to our Audit and Risk Committee also did not recommend removing councillors from decision making. It made the same recommendation as the Victorian Audit General Report, namely that, I quote, remove individual councillors from the grant review panel in line with the VARGO recommendation. Quote, exclude councillors from assessing and making recommendations on grant applications. So the issue for me is going further down a path that's not recommended in that, and I appreciate that different colleagues around the table may have a different view, but I do think that there is merit in having completely different bodies involved in the assessment and the decision making in relation to grants. And while the officer's report does address the issue of the multiple roles and has a strategy for addressing that issue, the multiple roles that staff would comply, I actually think it would be better to keep those completely separate. So look, I'll leave it there. I appreciate that the vast majority of the recommendations are positive. I think this is still a significant step forward compared to what we do have. So on balance, I'll abstain rather than vote against. Thank you.
I haven't put it to a vote just yet, but Councillor Baillieu.
I just wanted to propose that we adjourn to make an amendment to the motion.
I think... Yep. So you're proposing adjournment. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Happy to second, thank you.
Thanks.
Put it to a vote. All those in favour of an adjournment? Declare the motion carried. We will now adjourn the meeting. Councillors, I'm looking for a motion to resume the meeting. Councillor Friend-Pereira?
Move a motion to resume the meeting.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Baillieu.
Seconded.
Thank you. I'll put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Councillor Friend-Pereira, are you happy with the motion on the screen?
Yes, I'm happy with the amended motion on the screen.
Councillor Baillieu, are you happy to second that motion?
Happy to second.
Councillors, to assist the mover, is anyone opposed? Councillor Pattis.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move an amendment to see if that amendment succeeds before then considering this. What's that called? When I can move, I'd like to
You can move an amendment.
I'd like to foreshadow an amendment.
No, you can just move.
Move an amendment.
Yep.
And the amendment that I'd like to move is that before the grants are approved and finalised, that a report comes back to council for council to approve that grant process. So effectively, council has veto power.
Over the process?
Council, over who the grants go to. So the councillors are not involved in deciding who gets the grants, but the councillors have, just like any budgetary item, the councillors will be involved in seeing who the grant recipients are, and can veto.
So what's the amendment exactly?
Well, the amendment is that before the final decision is made for the grants, that a report be brought to council for approval.
Question. I wonder if I could just ask a question of Councillor Pattis so we ensure we get the drafting correct. I think I just heard you say for approval as opposed to for information. And the question which arises from that is that essentially we are stepping away from the concept of councillors approving the grants.
I'd like the councillors to be involved in the final decision, not in choosing who the grant recipients are. That's the intent.
So Councillor Pattis, is that the amendment that you want on screen?
Before the final decision is made for grants, the report is brought to council for approval. Yes.
Do I have a seconder for this amendment? We just need a moment to consider.
Can I raise a point of order, please?
It's just to confirm, Councillor Pattis, your amendment there is in complete opposition to point 2. So it's not an amendment to the motion, it's in opposition to the motion.
An alternative then.
We need to vote on the current motion as it was. If that fails, then we can come back to another motion. Councillor Simfield?
I was going to raise the same point of order in relation to section 28(3) of the governance rules. But I do wonder, seeing as I have the talking stick, whether I might ask a question of officers and ask if this is time critical, seeing as there seems to be a 180-degree turnabout sought. Could this matter be adjourned?
Council officers, we'll vote on the amendment as it is up there, and if it doesn't get through, then we can consider other options. So can you remove 7.7? Yep. Ms McCaughey, can you provide an answer to the point of order?
No,
To the
sorry,
question?
It's a question.
To the question.
Would you like me to re-ask it?
Yes.
And through you, Chair, my question is in relation to the time criticality of this agenda item, wondering whether it may be, in the circumstances, more appropriate to lay it on the table or to adjourn it to a further meeting to enable a discussion of councillors.
The current grants process is underway, so we would prefer to continue tonight and seek a decision. So that would be our preference.
If motion 7, if Councillor Pattis's amendment to the existing motion is to be removed under the governance rules, then perhaps an alternate amendment could be to amend clause 2, changing it to subject to elected, the councillors being, that all grants, including the community supports grant, be
Are you
presented
moving
to
an
council.
amendment?
Yes, that all grants, including the community supports grant, be presented to council for endorsement.
Yep, that actually works better.
So he wants to
I'm happy to move that.
So amending number 2,
to say to approve, but that's the whole.
so that it applies to both types of grants.
So my amendment would be that all the grants, not just community support grants, be
Councillor Franco, I think that's in direct opposition to the intention of the officer's recommendation. I think I'd suggest that we might vote on this, and then if it doesn't get through, then we've got other options. Oh, it's in the opposite to the motion. Yep. Is anyone who hasn't spoken to the motion what would like to speak? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to seek clarification from the officers that any recommendations would form a report to come to council for review prior to adoption anyway. I just wanted to seek clarification from the officers.
Yeah, thank you. So page 134 of your council papers talks about council's involvement in the process. And what we're proposing is that a report comes to council which lists the recommended applications for noting, but council are not making a decision on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody else who hasn't already spoken to the motion would like to speak to the motion?
I'd like to speak to the motion. I moved an amendment, but I haven't spoken to the motion.
Okay. You are correct, Councillor Pattis. Thank you.
So I'll be voting against the motion because I believe number 2 is inconsistent in that with respect to the community strengthening grants, we're delegating the authority to the director, yet with the community support grants, they're coming to council for endorsement. So I think we're being inconsistent in the way that we're dealing with grants. I'm not seeking councillors get involved in deciding who gets the grants in the decision process, but I am looking for council to endorse the decision as to who gets the grants once just like we do with anything else. With any other decision, we get an officer's recommendation and this council endorses it.
Thank you, Councillor Pattis. Councillor Baillieu.
Just to say briefly, I strongly support the position of excluding councillors from the decision-making process when it comes to grants. I think that's an important step forward in integrity in local government. And I wish that was true at state and federal level too. I think it would lead to better outcomes for our entire country. I'm also quite happy to see climate action grants actually being allowed to be used for the purpose of climate action. A bit awkward to apply for a grant that can't install a solar panel, can't install a battery. Important step forward in making a more flexible and agile grants program.
Thank you, Councillor Baillieu. Would any other councillors like to speak to the motion? If not, I will return to Councillor Friend-Pereira.
Thank you, Mayor. I think it's also worth noting in concluding this that we are looking at 2 very different threshold amounts. The community support grants amounts would be of the threshold of up to 500,000 and 100,000. These community support grants are up to 3,000 and 10,000 currently. I have concerns that the most efficient use of our time as councillors is discussing where $3,000 or $10,000 should go when we should be relying and trusting in the report that comes back to us, the evaluation report, which we are going to have great input into, that will come back and tell us whether or not we're getting outcomes. And that's really what's at stake here. It's not about inputs, it's about outcomes. When we get that report back, then we should be making changes. If we're not getting the results we want, we could make changes to the policy, but stop deciding on individual grants. If we can't set up the system, which is our job and the strategic direction, then that's our failing. So if we do have concerns and colleagues do have concerns, then they need to input into the evaluations report and into that process, and then give their input to design a system that officers can then implement. One of the biggest issues we've had with the community strengthening grants is it being delayed because of the meetings holding it up. So if we're back in the process and all of them we're talking about 60 grants a year here, have to get approved en bloc, and somebody has an objection to one of them, they all get held up. And this is for the most, these are for small community organisations doing highly valuable work. So I think if we've got issues with the process and the policy, that's where, as Councillor Baillieu did, make changes. Otherwise, focus on the macro and the strategic, and that's what I'd urge colleagues to do.
Thank you, Councillor Friend-Pereira. I will now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? All those abstaining? I declare the motion carried. Thank you. We will now move to item 8.7, temporary accommodation for community facilities. This item will be introduced by Andrew McHugh, the Manager of Health and Wellbeing Services.
Thank you, Mayor, and through you. This report relates to options for temporary accommodation for community facilities, particularly kindergartens in council-owned buildings, while building renewal works take place. There are some upcoming kindergarten building renewal projects planned, including at Glass Street Kindergarten in Kew East, Bellevue Kindergarten in Balwyn North. Both of these sites will not be able to operate out of those buildings while works take place. Investigations have taken place to find appropriate temporary accommodation. One such option is to use the former Balwyn Leisure Centre, as has been done previously for Balwyn Library, Graythorn Hub, Balwyn Community Centre, Through Road Early Learning Centre, JJ McMahon Memorial Kindergarten, Deep Dean Preschool and Balwyn Evergreen Centre. In 2013, Council resolved to demolish Balwyn Leisure Centre. However, subsequent decisions of Council deferred this. Most recently, Council resolved in May 2023 to continue using the former Balwyn Leisure Centre as temporary accommodation until 30 June 2026. The options explored to provide temporary accommodation for Glass Street and Bellevue kindergartens include continuing the use of the former Balwyn Leisure Centre, placing portable buildings in open space, or negotiating with a local primary school or church hall to use their buildings. The most cost-effective and least disruptive option is to continue using the former Balwyn Leisure Centre, and as such, this is the recommendation in the report. Should this option be supported, a further report will be prepared and presented to Council at a later date to consider longer-term options for this site. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to foreshadow moving the officer's recommendation, but I do have a question. Item number 3, the officers have suggested that this come back to council in 2026. Is it possible that it could come back to us later this year? Or are there too many other things?
One of the pieces of work it was related to was the open space strategy, so just trying to align it with that work. So probably have to take it on notice and get back to you around that.
Early 26 would be okay as well.
All right, we'll take that on notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pattis. Councillor Abuki.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Is it possible that whilst we're using the Balwyn Leisure Centre as a backup for temporary accommodation, that we could further activate the space for community use?
The way the facility is currently set up, it's very operational for one particular service so that they can operate without having to lock up rooms, et cetera, et cetera. So it's not set up that way at the moment, not to say it couldn't be in the future. We just need to investigate what would be required and what the cost of that might be.
Thank you, councillors. I'm in search of a motion. Councillor Pattis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Pattis. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nolan.
Happy to second the motion.
Thank you. To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. Councillor Pattis is the mover of the motion. Do you wish to speak to it? Thank you. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move to item 8.8, review of the CEO employment and remuneration policy. Just like to note that the Chief Executive Officer is now leaving the council meeting. This item will be introduced by Marianne Palatsides, the Executive Manager of People, Culture and Development. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, councillors. The purpose of this report is for Council to consider and approve Council's reviewed CEO Employment and Remuneration Policy and the CEO Employment and Remuneration Committee's Terms of Reference. This report also seeks endorsement of councillor representation for the CEO Employment and Remuneration Advisory Committee. By way of background, the Local Government Act 2020 required all Victorian councils to develop and adopt a CEO employment and remuneration policy by the 31st of December 2021. Council complied with this requirement by adopting its original policy on the 13th of December 2021. The current policy requires Council to review its policy within 6 months of a newly elected council. As such, both the policy and the committee's terms of reference have been reviewed and amended as outlined within the report. Any adjustments were based on councillor feedback received and officer recommendation. The report before you outlines the officer's recommendations. I would like, Madam Mayor, if I could, to correct a typographical error in item 2 of the recommendation to remove the redundant word policy. So if my governance colleagues can correct that on the screen, that would be appreciated.
Done.
And with that, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to take any questions.
Councillors, are there any questions of the officers? Councillor, no questions of the officers. Councillor Franco?
Happy to foreshadow a motion when the time.
Thank you, Councillor Franco. Councillor Osborne-Smith, do you have a question? No. Great. So, Councillor Franco.
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Happy to second that, Madam Chair. Thank you.
To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. Councillor Franco, would you like to speak to the... Oh, sorry. Councillor Franco, would you like to speak to the motion?
I'm happy to not speak. I think the report's clear.
Thank you. I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. I'd like to move to item 8.9, Instrument of Appointment and Authorisation, Environmental Protection Act 2017. This item will be introduced by Brian Wee, Manager of Governance and Legal.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report deals with a sub-delegation by this council to about 90 officers in relation to powers under the Environment Protection Act. They primarily relate to littering and noise control, and there's about 90 officers. Happy to take any questions.
Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Franco.
Apologies, I'd left my light up.
Councillors, is anyone prepared to move a motion? Councillor Friend Pereira.
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation as the motion.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Happy to second that. Thanks, Madam Chair.
To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. Councillor Friend Pereira, do you wish to speak to the motion? I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. I'd like to move on to item 8.10, Proposed City of Boroondara motions for the Municipal Association of Victoria, MAV, State Council on 16th of May 2025. The item will be introduced by Brian Wee, Manager of Governance and Legal.
Through you, Madam Mayor, this report presents a motion that has been lodged with the MAV for the State Council. The MAV, Municipal Association of Victoria, meets twice a year. Council is represented by its appointed representative, Councillor Hollingsworth, at this meeting. This motion relates to electrical line clearance. I understand from some questions from councillors whether or not the motion can be changed on the floor, and if this council endorses any changed motion, then the representative, Councillor Hollingsworth, can seek that change from the floor in May. I'm happy to take any questions. If council decided to proceed along that way, this motion could be slightly amended to say council resolved to endorse the amended motion to be submitted. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wee. Councillors, are there any questions of officers? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No question, but happy to move motion at the appropriate time. Thank you.
I think that could be right now. Thank you, Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr Wee. I'm delighted that Burundara Council is in a position to put forward this motion to the MAV State Council meeting, which is on the 16th of May, so 2.5 weeks away. This is a very, very important issue and something that Burundara Council has been very strong advocates for many, many years. We first started lobbying and liaising with our metropolitan neighbours back in 2019. Sadly, COVID...
Councillor Hollingsworth, can we just have a motion first? Would that be okay?
Yes, thank you. So I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Baillieu.
So seconded, Chair.
Thank you. To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? No. So, Councillor Hollingsworth, as the mover, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I was just trying to provide some context because this motion presents as a new motion, but it's actually a matter that we've been very strong advocates for many, many years. So as I was saying, when the pandemic hit late 2020, sadly, the advocacy slowed on this. From then 2020 and beyond, we've continued to liaise with the MAV and neighbouring councils. We've worked to establish the electric line clearance consultative committee, and we've been making very strong success in liaising with our neighbours with regard to reducing or proposing to reduce the very aggressive power line clearance of our nature strip trees. And our community often say to us, why do council prune trees so routinely and so aggressively, and they are shaped to what's called a wine glass, and we lose all the centre core branches of the trees? The answer is pure and simple. This is a state government regulatory control through the Electricity State Electric Commission, through Electric Safety Victoria, and it's something that we're bound to comply with, and if we don't, there are very significant penalty fines, which ultimately then cost our community as ratepayers. So we are bound to follow the regulatory controls, but we believe that it is not necessary to prune the trees so aggressively. The clearance could be significantly reduced to protect the integrity of the tree, and what this motion does is it's appealing to Minister Lily D'Ambrose as our Minister for Climate Action for Energy and Resources and Minister for the State Electric Commission to say, please work with us, work with the MAB, work with our neighbouring councils, and please help us protect our nature strip trees. And if I may, with your indulgence, just read one more paragraph. In one of the prior motions to the MAV, we stated that healthy and intact urban forest canopy is incredibly recognised by experts, government and communities as critical to mitigate the impacts of climate change, improving health and wellbeing and enhancing our local livability. The existing pressures from urban development, and particularly now with the state government endorsing planning reforms that further allow increased density on building sites, which is putting metropolitan councils such as Burundara at the risk of increased heat island effects, now is more than important than ever to protect our nature strip trees as we lose vegetation from residential sites. At the least we could do is try and retain our trees on nature strip. Thank you. And I would encourage my councillor colleagues to support this.
Councillor Baillieu, as a seconder, would you like to speak to the motion? I'll now put the motion to a vote. We didn't go to debate, but have you got...
Possibly a point of order, or at least a point of clarification. I'm just clarifying with Councillor Hollingsworth that it's the motion on the screen, not with the amendment that was suggested by Mr. Wee to, yes.
Yeah. If I may respond, thank you, Councillor Friend-Pierre. The motion is adequate as it is. Ideally, we would have liked a lot more detail in it, and particularly more detail with the rationale. But as Mr. Wee mentioned, we can expand on this at the State Council meeting, and I'll put forward some additional dialogue to share with you as my councillor colleagues prior to going to the State Council meeting, and bring that to a briefing in the next week or so. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Friend Pereira. I'll now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We'll now move to item 9, general business. Councillors, are there any items of general business? Councillor Simfield.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one, and it's following on from the last item. And I should have probably checked with Councillor Hollingsworth in advance of this to make sure we're not going to say the same thing. But I'll bat on in the interim until sometime perhaps she puts her light on. Council advocates on behalf of the Burundara community on issues important to the City of Burundara, and one of those advocacy tools, as we've just seen, is the leverage of Council's membership of the MAV. The MAV is the statutory peak representative body for local government in Victoria, and it advocates on behalf of all councils, or at least its member councils, issues that affect the sector. The MAV's process to decide issues to advocate for is from motions by member councils to be voted on at MAV State Council meetings. And while the next MAV State Council meeting, as we just heard, is the 16th of May, they do occur at least annually. And I don't want us to risk missing an opportunity in the future. So while I don't see it's necessary to put a formal motion in general business, I would hope that in advance of the cut-off date for future MAV state councils, this council will be given the opportunity to consider motions to make sure that the opportunity is not lost. I note that this motion was submitted prior to it coming before council, and I don't find that as particularly satisfactory moving forward. So I'd like to make sure that they're brought to the chamber well in advance of that cut-off date in future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Simfield. Councillors, any further items of general business? No, I'll move on to item 10, urgent business. Councillors, are there any items of urgent business? No, I'll move on to confidential business. Item 11, councillors, there are no items of confidential business. So this brings us to the end of the order of business for this meeting. Thank you, all of you who have joined us in the gallery and online this evening, and I now declare this council meeting closed.